Hey, friends, family, partners, Matt Beamer here for our monthly live Q&A. Before I get into that, I want to share with you a little bit about goal setting and things. As we come to the end of the year, we do this every year. I taught my kids to do this from, basically from the time they can talk. I remember one time, little Elizabeth, when she was with her cousins visiting in the U.S. one time, and she must have been 5 years old. And she's kind of like, talking to him like, what are your goals in life? Like, what do you want to achieve? And they're kind of like, what? We just want to watch cartoons. And so the kids didn't like it that I made them do this when they did it, but now it's paid off in dividends. They are incredible in achieving so much. And really a big part of it comes down to, like the Bible says, hey, write the vision, make it plain. But that's pretty broad. And it really is challenging for a lot of people to just start writing vision. You end up you can start with a bucket list, like what are all the things you'd love to do? I track a bucket list on my phone. You can brainstorm what you'd like to achieve in life, but you really need to move to the place where you become intentional in life with goal setting. And goals are just hope unless you put a date and you put it on a timeline and you start breaking it down into small steps and working towards it. The other key is having balance. I've said many times that you never want to get to the end of your life climbing the ladder of success to find out you put the ladder against the wrong wall. I remember one time when I was pastoring in England, I mentioned that I was teaching a little bit along these lines. This is probably 20 years ago or more. And afterwards, a successful business person came up and said, you know what? That's not left me. I want to talk to you about how I make my life count for eternity. And we sat down, and by the end of that conversation, he was willing to sell his house in the suburbs to move closer to where the church was, which was inner city, buy a house he could pay cash for so that he could be close to the church and basically start volunteering for the church full time. So, I'm like, wow, that was a big step. And I've had other people come to me and say the same thing. I remember one time a guy came to me, he says, I'm going to quit my job and come volunteer for you. And I'm like, no, don't do that. I don't want to be responsible for that. You have a family of kids. So I said, go back to your work and see if they will he's a very valuable employee, managed a retail outlet store and had been there for 8 years. And he came back to him and he said, I want to make changes in my life and I want to do something that makes an eternal impact. And so this was in England. And he's like, I'd like to resign my work. Oh, what I had coached him is I said, go back and see if they'll let you have one day off a week. And then you can volunteer that one day. And when he did ask for that, they paid him full-time benefits and they paid him the same wage, but gave him the day off once a week so that he could donate that to work within the church. And he became my personal assistant and was that for many, many years. Now is no longer in England, is in another country doing incredible things for the Lord as well. Family is awesome and all of that. Those people and those choices paint the picture of the fact that you can just keep every single year going from year to year and just keep doing the same old thing without really asking the critical questions of, am I doing the God thing? Am I doing the thing that I was designed for before the creation of the world? Am I doing the thing that God has purposed for me? And there's a lot of great goal setting stuff out there, but the goal setting stuff, like for example, in the old days, Stephen Covey and in all of that was very, very helpful and very good. And now there's all kinds of new stuff, but very few of those things come from a Christian perspective. The Bible speaks into this. Philippians 2 and verse 13 says, for it is God who works in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. And there's several other scriptures. Hebrews 5:12, Ephesians 5:15 says, redeem the time. Romans 15, Paul says, it is written. He had a mission statement, a purpose built from the fact that he'd seen himself in scriptures. So 1 Corinthians chapter 9 says, I beat my body under and I set my course, not as one who fights aimlessly or walks aimlessly or runs aimlessly, but I have a purpose to it. So there's so many different scriptures like that. And what I wanted to do is just draw attention to it. It's a good time, the first part of December, to begin thinking about. I began thinking about this from a ministry-wide setting in October, and we tried to talk all of our teams through taking stock and reviewing and beginning to set their priorities and SMART goals for the coming year, starting in October, so that by time the end of mid-December comes, we have a pretty clear idea of where we're going in the next year or next 5 years, whatever it might be. But I do it personally. And one of the things that I found, which is very helpful for me, working on this and crafting it every year, it changed a little bit until I got it as concise as I possibly could, a statement that represents the purpose for my life, a mission statement. For me, it is, I live to make God smile. Everything, like in every area of life. In my relationships, I live to make God smile. In the calling he's called me to, I live to make him smile in my calling. Financially, I want my mind and my education, you know, how I train and develop my mind. I want to make him smile with that. Physically, I want to make him smile. He had some goals that we established for the beginning of the year. We visited 30 churches to celebrate 30 years and to develop the base from which, the support base from which will empower us towards the 2030 vision, which is seeing that which has happened in places like Nigeria and Lebanon and Egypt expand across all 22 countries in the Middle East and North Africa. The goal is to have 300 new individual households. We're now up to 40, which is great. We're over that 10% mark. And then 30 organizations. In organizations, we're right at like 10. So we're about 30% of that goal. We turn officially 31 October 4th, Club 1040 Day. By the way, if you didn't see, on Club 1040 Day, we did a little different this year. If you haven't seen it yet and you want to, you need to email admin@club1040 and request your special unique code for a confidential briefing. While we're talking about what should we do for Giving Tuesday, we called it the final push. And I want to say thank you to everybody that gave. We had a number of one-time donors, so we appreciate that. And I'm going to, you know, even though I said it's for monthly partners, I'm going to do some push-ups for you guys too. There's someone that gave $800. I'm going to do those 800 push-ups for you. Thank you so much. But we did get monthly partners, which totaled to right around, it's real close, not exactly, but somewhere around 247 or something like that, I think, if I remember right. You can still give and you can still become a partner this year. And as far as Giving Tuesday, I wanted to give something back to you guys. And if you want to, I have notes, and I did a teaching on this a few years back. And then we revisit this, how to set your life purpose statement. How do you set goals? One of the things I want to talk about here before we finish is a key that I've come across, which it started with Stephen Covey's Sharpen the Saw. And he would talk about how, you know, it's you have a saw to use, and really you are that saw in life. And there's like teeth on that saw. And he would talk about, you know, you don't take care of yourself physically if you don't take care of yourself emotionally. I think he used mentally and spiritually as well. Or no, relationships was one of them. There were 4 of them in Stephen Covey's training. But over the years, I realized I kind of evolved that. And because on a personal base, I don't talk about this when I teach. I talk about 7 teeth to sharpen your saw, 7 teeth on your saw that you can sharpen. There's 7 areas. And in the emotional side of me is not one of those areas. And the reason it's not one of those areas is because if I get these 7 areas right, then the emotional health and the emotional well-being just follows. It's a fruit of getting these other things right. So for those 7 areas are spiritually, relationally, physically, mentally, financially, calling, and fun. I put fun in there. And what these are designed for, and this is the principle that Stephen Covey was trying to teach, is you need to have something that helps give you balance. And so what his teaching is you take these in our framework, 7 areas. You take these 7 areas and you then work backwards by setting goals of what you want to achieve in these 7 areas. You work backwards to what do I need to do this week towards 1 or 2 or 3 of those areas. And then the following week, to the other areas. So you're doing something. So for example, relationally, if you get to the end of your life and you are a success financially, but your relationships are a mess, what good is that? If you get to the end of your life and your success financially with work, but yet you've not got the spiritual part right, you lose yourself spiritually and you become spiritually shipwrecked, then what good is that? So this is the idea behind these areas. In every year, I've got it here. I kind of take stock and I look at what did I want to achieve in these areas last year, and then what do I want to achieve next year. I spend time doing that throughout the month of December, especially sometimes I take 2 or 3 days and I just spend time looking at that and praying into it and talking to the Lord about the purpose of my life and all of that. So those areas: spiritually, relationally, physically, mentally, financially, calling, and fun. And I have a little PDF that kind of walks you through this and a little teaching and stuff. So if you want those notes, just simply drop a little thing for our team. If you can email admin@club1040.com, put in the subject line goals. And what I call for myself personally, because I lived, my purpose statement is I live to make God smile. As I was going through these 7 areas this time, I realized, you know what, these are like milestones that I want to like achieve throughout the year or in the decades to come. So I'm like, I'm going to call them smile stones. So these are my 7 smile stones that I'm sharing with you. Let's talk a little bit about some of the questions that were raised. This is live Q&A. And one of these questions was, do my arms hurt? My triceps are so sore. Because thank you to those that partnered, because you have got me back into the flow of doing it. And so that was helpful to me, and you helped me in ways that you'll never know. What's the first thing you look for when you land in a country? Well, it kind of depends. Sometimes it's the first thing I look for is a toilet. Let me think. Toilet first, then immigration, passport. So I need my passport. I'm looking for that. Let's see. Then my bags. You go through immigration, then the customs. You pick up your bags, go through customs. Then if I need currency to change cash, even though it's expensive to do in the airports, it's more expensive to do it before you get to airports, and it's also easier. Sometimes in countries you can do it outside on what they call the parallel market, the black market, and in some places that's actually accepted practice. So it's not really illegal. It's a part of, that's why they call it a parallel market. It's not really illegal. And that's the best way to do it. So like, for example, if I was doing it in Lebanon, I would never change money in the airport in Lebanon. So you kind of need to know those things. Other places, it's a good place to do it. You get some cash in, especially if you're going to need it like immediately after you get out of the airport. So here's a good travel tip. So some phones now have dual SIMs, but if you get an updated iPhone in the US, they no longer have the little SIM tray. And because we have an office in the UK, the last time I upgraded my iPhone was right after they changed that in the US. And so I had to get my iPhone in the UK so that I could have a little SIM tray. And there's some airports where it's little kiosks where they sell SIM cards. And you just go up and you buy a SIM card and you put it in your phone, and you've got then data at the cheapest way to do it. So you're not using your international plans. I do have an international plan, so if I have to, it's cheaper than if it was like no plan, which would be ridiculous. But some countries, they don't have those partnerships. There's some countries, it's crazy, where because the country phone line and all that kind of stuff is run by the government, and the government doesn't pay its bills, then they don't have plans with certain American carriers, and they won't do that. So you got to figure out, sometimes you have to have a SIM card in that country. And now though, more and more phones are just eSIMs. So like on my phone, I have an eSIM for my US number. So I carry that everywhere, and I can data roam if I need to, and I can use it roaming if I need to, if the country has those agreements. And then I can use a SIM card, a real SIM card, but I can also do 2 eSIMs. So more and more, there are these companies that you can look up that you can use an eSIM where you pay a fee in, if you're American, in dollars, in British, in pounds, wherever you're at. And then you can, whatever country you go to, you can use that as a digital eSIM wherever you go. Usually you can't make calls on that, and that's where you get into problems. So for example, sometimes local apps, like in a particular Middle Eastern country, I'm thinking of, everything they do with apps on their phones. And the problem is you have to have a local number in that country in order to register on those apps. And the eSIM does, for some of them, the eSIMs won't do it, and you can't use your international number for someone. So those are some of the dynamics. Anyway, so sometimes they get a SIM card, and what I do, probably the first thing I do after I get a taxi and I get to the place where I'm going is try to get a shower, because traveling is gross. Okay. Ever mix up languages while traveling? Another great question. I'll finish with this. Yeah. So one time, I think Jonathan was like maybe 4 or 5 years old at the time, and I was with another American pastor leader, and we had 80 young people come over to, this is when we pastored in England. We had 80 young people come to England, and we split them into 2 teams. One went to Germany and one went to, it was Italy. Yeah, Germany and Italy. And we had, because I'm the pastor leader, I visited both countries. So we've been in Germany, and now we're in Italy, and we have to get to the airport to drop this pastor off to return back to the U.S. And our rental car breaks down, and we're in Italy in the middle of nowhere, countryside, and I'm calling the number for roadside assistance, and I don't speak Italian. I was trying to use a little bit of Spanish in there to try to do a little bit of Italian, a little bit of Spanish to try and make ends meet, a little bit of English. And but the problem is he was asking, the person on the phone was asking, where am I? And I kept saying Strasse, which is the German word for street, as opposed to the Italian one, like Strauss's street in German. What's the Italian word right now? Via, I think, in Italy. So instead of saying like Via something or other, I was saying Strauss something or other. And the Italian guy was like, I don't understand what you're saying. And I'm like, in my mind, and we hadn't slept much the whole time. And I was just like, why is this person not understanding? I'm speaking to him in his language. I'm saying the road in the right. And then it wasn't until after I hung up the phone, after we finally kind of figured something out, that I'm like, that I realized, the whole time I was using German word for the road as opposed to the Italian word for the road. So anyway, yes, things like that happen where you mix up words, especially when you are non-proficient in languages as we are, and you've traveled to a lot of places. Okay. Loads of things like that. A lot of other great questions we'll get to later, the next time we do a Q&A. I've got the number here. So 272. Thank you to every partner. That's $272 per month of new partnership that's coming in. And, that's over $3,000 a year. Thank you so much to all of you. That means I think I did 260 push-ups. I think I need to do 12 more push-ups to meet that goal. And like I said, the person that gave a one-time gift of $800, I'm going to use that as incentive too. So thank you so much to you for that. November, we flew in from the Middle East directly into Kentucky, and there was a 3-day mission conference that we were able to take part in there. I was the main speaker, but then our Julie and our team, Madison and Christy, were all there, and they did a phenomenal job with the children's area, ministering to children. There's been somewhere around 20,000 children that have been inspired by the books and the curriculum that has recently gone out, the 4-week curriculum that went out. I don't know, there's like maybe somewhere around 40 churches or something that now have access that curriculum. Maybe it's probably more than that now. But anyway, so then we went from Kentucky. We drove down to this sort of Sarasota area of Florida. We ministered on the Sunday in Tampa in a church there, then on a Wednesday. And then we drove, because what happened is our team drove the ministry vehicle from Oklahoma out to Kentucky. They flew back, drove from Kentucky to Florida, then from Florida back to Oklahoma. And then our final church, we set a goal to do 30 churches this year, and 37 scheduled with us. We went over our goal, and we just completed the 37th church at Cornerstone Church in Midwest City, Oklahoma. Pastors Ron and Carol McKee, they are amazing. They have been partners of CLUB1040 since before they pastored that church. They pastored in Elma, Arkansas before that. They were partner churches there, and they've been partner all that time. I think probably 28 or 29 years of the 30 years that we've been overseas, they've been partners almost the entirety of 3 decades. That's incredible. We say Club 1040's mission statement is a relational missionary movement reaching the unreached. Relationships are what makes God's purposes accomplish in the earth. This is a great example of it. Also been in the top giver tier throughout the last 30 years. That's huge. So you think about, if that one relationship wasn't there, how we would have been hampered from achieving some of the purposes of God. It just takes 2 or 3 relationships to not be in the mix, and suddenly we're not able to achieve so many things that God has done through Club 1040. And it's true moving forward. What are the relationships that God's calling to come into the mix, into the Club 1040? What is a club? A club's a group of like-minded people who come together around a common purpose and mission. So who are the relationships God's calling together to come into alignment with this common purpose and mission of reaching the unreached across 22 countries, the Middle East, North Africa, by the year 2030? We need to see the support, the equivalent support of about $20,000 extra dollars a month coming in as we move forward. We've this last year, with all the travel and everything, we set a goal of 30,000 extra, and we saw 10,000 extra come in. I'm using approximate numbers, and so we're about 20,000 more to go. And if we achieve our partner goals, we get a long way towards those. If everybody does their part, not asking for anybody to do something that they shouldn't do or go beyond what they should do, but if everybody does their part, then we can work God's plans will be established. So if you, as you're praying throughout this year, and you think, oh, you know what, I feel like God wants us to partner significantly, and by significantly I mean from your heart, partner, not just give, but partner significantly, then go on our website, club1040.com, and check out if you're an organization, which means a church, a business, a foundation. Foundations are some of our biggest donors now. Churches would be the second biggest donors. And then individuals make up a significant amount. And you think, we're just saying, if 300 people give $300 a month, that puts us a long way towards that goal that we're endeavoring to achieve in order to have the strength from which to expand across the Middle East and North Africa. We're taking huge steps this next year. There's several countries that we've done some expansion activity in. There's new buildings being built that we're being a part of. There's new campuses being established. There's expanding and mobilizing teams. There's setting up there's at least 4 legal entities that we're setting up as we move into the new year to enable us to be able to facilitate work within countries. Some are creative access countries or limited access countries, so we're not creating a ministry. Others are ministries, depending on the country. Sometimes you can't do that legally. So anyway, we were in Oklahoma, 3 services on the Sunday. They did the children's area for 2 of those services as well. And we're so thankful to the McKees and to you as partners. So it's pretty cool to have had these opportunity to visit these 37 churches. We don't normally do that. We're not normally in the States that much to be able to do that. But as we transition from one location to another, this was a great window of time to be able to do that. And as we look forward to 2026, one of the prayer points there is the other reason why we're here in the country at this point too is because of visas. We've used up our visas for a particular country we're relocating to, so we needed to be in the States for a little while to formalize some of the things that need to happen in order for us to be able to do visas. So anyway, there's prayer points as well. Wisdom and favor for these legal authorities, working with the lawyers and all the different things that we have to do there, that we have favor with them. As we come to Christmas time, a number of our teams are doing outreaches locally. Like, for example, in Lebanon, they're doing incredible outreach there, and they'll make contact with literally thousands of people who don't know Jesus. And so be praying for them as they do outreaches and expansion. But also from a prayer perspective, a great prayer point is the teams to get some really good soul rest. Talking about this balance that I talked about at the beginning, and that they would be strengthened with all might in their inner man. You pray for them to be strengthened as Paul prays for the church at Ephesus, because we try to carve out a little bit of rest time for people. They work so hard. Usually when you're overseas, especially if you're American working overseas, you have two shifts. You've got a shift where you're in country working, and then as soon as that begins to finish, then your partner side of the ministry begins to wake up, and you have to begin to interact with people in the States. And so you kind of do two shifts. You're working 2 or 3 jobs, doing 2 or 3 shifts to be able to fulfill the purpose that God's mandated you to fulfill. And every person that contributes a little something makes it easier. So anyway, I want to say thank you so much for helping to lift our hands and make it easier for us. Each one of you are such a blessing, and we appreciate it. If you haven't got a hold of the 30 years, as we said, we're finishing our 30 years of celebration. We did this magazine that covers 30 years, and it has a lot of great information in it and stories. And then these QR codes go to things like podcasts where we tell stories, kind of like some of the stories I told earlier today. So thank you for your great questions. Until next month, which will be actually next year. Can you believe it? We'll be getting a Christmas card in the mail pretty soon. If you don't get one within the next few days, send us your address. It's possible we don't have your address. And if you think, I don't know if you have our address or not, send it anyway to admin@club1040.com, because then send your cell number, send your email address, and your phone. Well, it'll be in your email if you send it by email to admin@club1040.com. ADMIN, admin@club1040.com. Okay. Thank you so much. That's this year's, a whole year, 2025, Facebook Live Q&A closeout. God bless you.